we completed the birthing, and now we go on to the next part of the ceremony, the consuming of the ritualistic child. This comes from an ancient British tradition, which was part of the pagan rituals where they got blended into Christmas later on, where you just eat a baby. And it wasn't, like, funnily enough about that was it wasn't, like, a thing, really. It was just one dude's interest. Just happened to like eating babies. But kind of this guy was a trendsetter. A little bit like the Jean-Paul Gaultier of baby eating in ancient England. Which is a lot like the Jean-Paul Gaultier of today, really. I mean, practically the same thing. And he's sort of encouraged it just by doing it with such style and panache, I think. It's not panache, which, you know, I got very confused by.
Pretty sure that's a Japanese dessert.
I think I'm 126 panache.
Today we're going to be drawing a creature called Hawlucha. Hawlucha. Hawlucha.
H-A-W?
Yes.
Okay.
Not horse, as in W-H-R.
Well, that would be completely different. Because yeah, we'd be doing... You'd have, like, just kind of a bucket there. Essentially, see, the whore has two... And this is like putting my English degree hat back on again, which is much more comfortable than my history degree suppository. I'm not really sure why it's that form. They didn't explain that. But like you get your... Normally the degree's a piece of paper, and they do it in a big ceremony. But they gave a history degree to me in like this alley in the valley, and there were other people there, so it seemed kind of legit, but it was also in the form of a butt plug that I'm wearing now, because, I mean, I earned it. And it says history degree on it, so, you know, it's probably official. I think it was engraved. Fortunately, it was etched in and not raised lettering, otherwise I'd be able to feel it constantly. Because at the moment now, I'm just sort of used to it. It's like there's nothing there. It's really, you know, I'd miss it if it were gone, to be honest. So, you know, because I don't have, you know, my normal sort of English hat on, I'll have to put that on and talk about how the whore comes from, like, a horde. Like, which... I believe was Eritrean for, like, a fuckload. Which was an actual unit of measurement back then, as it was the amount you could move scales using the king's semen. Much like feet, and, yeah, feet were, you know, king's heads and things like this. These were how we measured things back then, was you'd get just whoever was kind of big and impressive in the village, and get him to jack off onto, like, a set of scales, and then that was a unit of measurement. That was a fuckload. Which, you know, changed into horde, and because semen's actually lots and lots of little things wriggling around, and not just sort of one big snake that makes a baby, you'd get like this sort of continuance, and that's you know, words sort of stay like that throughout history, you know, they're like a tale that has, you know, connections going back, even though the specifics of the word change. You know, there's like this little heralds harken back to the old days. So, basically, it's a horde, and lucha, as we all know, is Spanish for plate. And in early Spain, they used to settle all sort of disputes at mealtime by just trying to punch the shit out of each other while holding plates. 'Cause it was the nearest thing. They took knives away pretty quickly, because cunts were just getting cut up left and right. So essentially they were left with plates. And for some reason they didn't think to take the plates away. They just sort of wound up turning plates into like ever more elaborate weapons. And that's where you get modern day professional wrestling. And so like what you're dealing with here is kind of, are you familiar with Transformers?
Yes.
Alright. In Transformers, there is a group of fellows called the Constructicons. And they basically get into a big ass gay pile that somehow isn't as retarded as that sounds, but is like good retarded in the other way, where there's just sort of like a big stack of dudes that makes one even bigger dude. And he was a fuck truck. Like, that guy just killed. Like, no one could beat him. He was called Devastator.
Yeah.
Because of his devastating good looks. Which was actually how he managed to win a lot of fights. People just couldn't bring themselves to punch him. Look him up. Like, the Google images, I think, have a lot of really good impressions of just the kind of angles of his face, which the Decepticons were known for. The Autobots had these like horrible, funny, round, sort of piggly little faces that nobody really liked. These sort of aquiline features of the Decepticons. were favored by a lot of the ancient artists. So what Hawlucha is sort of a staggering mass of kind of pudgy luchadors that couldn't really make it on their own, have attempted to assemble into a Devastator-like pile.
It's all making sense now.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you know, obviously if everything worked like you wanted it to, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. So, you know, some of them are falling off. Like, it's a little bit of a mess. But, you know, we'll see how this goes. So we got, like, basically their original sort of, landscape, if you will. They kind of, you know, use the wrestling ring of the environment, which is small shrubs. Yeah, and they got vines that go together and form the ropes. Unlike with professional wrestling, though, they have 4, which is not regulation. I mean, I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you for free. That's, you know, it's a bit squiffy. That's the technical term.
Squiffy?
Yeah, squiffy.
Good to know.
That's where something's fucked up. And they don't want to say it's just like fucked up. Because, you know, I don't know. Children might be around, and, you know, those little cunts can't hear shit without just fucking repeating it, little fuckers. Oh, shut up. Just, you know, yeah, like those things that you clap near and they just talk. And you want to hit them with rocks, but you can't. You can kind of headbutt them. People don't seem to notice when you do that. I don't know if that's an official rule about what you can do to children, but, like, yeah, you just smack them in the head. So, you know, we got, like, much like the Constructicons, each of the Luchas has some semblance of an independent personality. They aren't happy about this situation, though, but it's, you know, it's the only way they can succeed. It's this, or put on a dress and become a novelty act. And,
no one wants to do that.
It's not a good way to make money, I'm afraid. So the bottom one, who's one of the feet, these little undies. You can only wrestle in dick dogs.
DTs.
Yeah, it's all about getting as close to gay sex as possible. Without actually being gay sex. It's actually an extremely complex format of gay chicken.
So let me put this way: is the true winner of wrestling when they're in the ring whoever slips their dick in their ass without no one knowing? Is that the real winner?
Yeah, no one can see.
Right.
Only the ref is allowed to observe this. And he'll pick the time, and then you get the 3 count. And there's these little arms up there, and the bottom left foot. This is one of the legendary Pokemon, because there's not a lot of them.
Okay.
And there's these little nips. He's kind of got like sad, sort of jiggly Ric Flair titties, which aren't optimal in terms of like floppy wrestle tits, but they're not the worst. They're not the worst, and that's a treat. You know, can't be the top, just don't be the bottom. That's a thing I learned in the Merchant Navy. You want to kind of be somewhere in the middle. You know, a little bit like a human centipede.
Right.
Because, you know, you want to be pooping in someone's mouth. Because
you don't want to be the person getting pooped on.
You don't want the third layer of it. Like, that's just...
You know what they say, shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's... It's even harder when, like, if that hill were, like, 3 sets of stomachs. And that gets sort of confusing, sort of by the end of it. You don't know what's going on. Are you eating... You know, what was this originally, this thing that you're consuming? Was it, oats? I don't think it was a form of bean. So, on the left, we have Dean Whistle Pentagon Sr. He's, part of the, Whistle Pentagon family.
Of course.
Of, luchadors. There's more nipples. Nipples are important. They're a large part of, all professional wrestling.
I'd like to see a mod for Street Fighter, so Zangief's nipples were in his eye sockets.
That would make a lot of sense, actually, considering the, traditions, you know, of Lucha. You know, nipple, because it's one of the little things that you can really grind a nipple into someone's eye, if you need to. And I have. Not in any wrestling capacity, of course. But,
you're just bored.
Yeah, well, yeah, you just kind of sneak up on people, and you just sort of, you do it. And at first they're a bit too surprised to work out what's going on. There's just, unfamiliar nipples in their eyes. And, by the end of it, they're usually okay. You just tell them it's a prank and it's fine. So there's like your kind of primary two. And they're a little disappointed at the moment because a lot of this doesn't work. Like, it's a failed experiment.
Right.
Because in the middle we have, huge, in brackets, Bette Midler Benson, who is a super heavyweight, and he's a tough cunt to carry, because he is actually just sort of one big sphere with a head.
Right.
He is originally Indian, I believe, and is largely sad all the time, because he's not even really into professional wrestling at all. He's just kind of abducted because he made a good... He looked almost like a set of hips as it stood, and the rest of them just sort of abducted him and kind of, turned him into this sort of piece. But they put some clothes on him and they feed him. So, it's, and his little shoulder straps. The rest of his outfit's kind of black. And color him in there. But he's a tube. He doesn't have arms or legs. One thing he does have, though, which is, very popular, is one mighty nipple in the middle. Which we believe... Well, we believe it's actually part of a undigested twin that he absorbed in the womb. So he's just got... Because he can't feel it. But when you rub it, part of his brain thinks of shapes. And that's suspected... It's suspected that that's where that comes from. So, we have the middle piece there. And then we have... on top... who kind of takes advantage of this whole situation, really. Anyways, he's got the green boots. They're popular. It's his trademark green boots, actually. And his trademark green boxes as well. Which was very confusing for a while, because people thought he was just in some sort of, large onesie. Which is also a popular outfit amongst the Lucha hordes. He's probably the tallest of the lot as well. So, rarely can we actually visibly see the top of him. And he kind of sits up there, and they realize quite early on in the piece that they weren't going to be able... Because, he doesn't actually do any exercise.
Right.
So he can't really lift a bunch of midgets to make his arms. So he sort of just uses, those grabbing claws.
Oh, yeah.
So he's got, his arms coming down here. And he has lots of sleeve tattoos because they're very popular. And has these filthy, disgusting orange fingers. Because he was born and raised in a Cheeto factory.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, well, it's good work for Mexican mothers. Because you can just sort of abandon your children to the Cheeto pile, and they'll eat. It won't be a good life, but then what life in Mexico is. So, he's in these horrible, grubby little fucking claws of his. He's got, those little claws that, fat ladies use to pick up, their cats.
Yeah.
And shit. Which are primarily Hawlucha's core offensive. A lot like the crab thing you were talking about. How it has, a pinch and shit. Yeah. He's got some pretty hectic pinch here. He's also known to pinch to leg luchas when they get a little uppity. That's part of the deeper kind of mythos, like Pokemon does, which I think is really good. Pokemon kind of adds a lot of sad facts frequently. He had one in his left hand, but he dropped it, which you never actually see happen. It's kind of like a thing that if you could ever find his last little claw gripper, he'd actually be one of the most powerful Pokemon in the entire Pokeverse. But he's really hard to train. on account of him being actually sort of, you know, 4 sentient human beings. A little bit like Tingle in Legend of Zelda.
Right.
He has his own life and his own ideas, and they all kind of listen to, you know, Doug Ray Benson at the top there, but it's a rough arrangement. But you know, like Magnemite and Doug Trio, who are really just sort of a collection of, you know, several individuals, they make it work. You know, it's a lot like Who's the Boss. You think it's, you know, you think, oh, how can that, you know, how can that balance of power maintain? But they managed it for, you know, over 15 seasons.
Holy crap, really?
No. And all of it, well, yeah, but I mean, you know, you gotta use your imagination. I'm counting the extra 12 seasons I wrote,
right,
personally.
Fanfic.
Well, you know, I like to think they were almost going to be produced. You know, it was close. They didn't normally sort of accept unsolicited Who's the Boss scripts from 8-year-olds in Australia. But, you know, I wowed them a lot with my deep understanding of Tony Danza and his range, not only as an actor, but as a human being. So you see, like, Hawlucha here, you know, he has Leah, which works like 4 times because there's like extra eyeballs. And that's a rough Leah. Like that'll destroy your stats. Like you become paralyzed and poisoned, and sometimes you just get a bit bored. Like bored poke, you know, they just get bored. And they sometimes just go home and the game switches off and deletes itself from your hard drive, and you forget it. It's a very, very powerful move, but a lot like Fisher. It's kind of hard to hit with. That's his primary attack, and I mean the one in the middle is the one you gotta feel sorry for. There, poor Bette Midler. Does not want to be there.
No.
I'll tell you that right now.
No.
And his mournful cry can be heard sort of across the poker plains. But yeah, you know, he's a solid one. Hard to train. Like I said, hard to train, but a rewarding capture for the true poker enthusiast. You know, the real fans like it. And that's, yeah, so we've got a horde of luchas that sort of assemble into one coherent pile. Quite literally a pile at times. When they sleep, they sort of curl up on each other like kittens. Very cute. You take pictures of them when they're sleeping. You know, like with housemates. And it's, you know, yeah. It's, you know, it's one of the more tragic Pokemon as well. Like, I think a lot of the Pokemon are tragic. Like how Cubone saw its mother get raped and murdered. Like, that's, you know, that was kind of tragic. And, like, you know, how Poliwhirl saw its mother get raped and murdered. That was kind of tragic as well. And, how Ash saw his mom just get raped a lot. And she was okay with it by the end.
So, Hawlucha is a Hawk Luchador.
Okay. Well, so you probably told me the wrong spelling. So that's the direction that we've gone in now.
That's the correct spelling.
I'm blaming you for this. Because, see, what I'm going from, like, Pokemon... I mean, have you played the 2 that were for the Virtual Boy called Pokemon Cheese and Winston? You couldn't actually... Winston was the best. Pokemon Cheese, literally the only Pokemon they had in that was Missing Number. And if you watched that for the Virtual Boy, you'd go insane and shave all your hair off. And you'd change your name to something unpronounceable in the human tongue. Only 2 people played it, and I think they're in the ocean.
Of course.
They can't breathe under there, but they seem okay. They're still working, building some kind of terrifying giant monolith. You know, they just they look at you when James Cameron drops down to visit in his little tub. That's why he goes down there actually. Is to
they're actually building a real life Rapture, and they're filming Avatar 3 there.
Quite possibly. James Cameron can haggle quite well.
He can also breathe on Neptune.
Yeah. But, like, Winston was great. Winston, you know, Pokemon Winston was brilliant. That was the best. I think it's the vastly superior. And, like, that's how you can pick, like, the kind of real Pokemon fans that, like, enjoy this kind of stuff that you and I do, because we're really good at this stuff and have, like, a deep knowledge of the material in Pokemon, is because, you know, you ask them and it's like, what's your favorite, you know, what was your favorite Pokemon from Pokemon Winston? And usually they'll just kind of look at you like you're a bit funny. And that's How you know you got a dud on your hands? You got a poser. You don't know Pokemon fucking Winston, you piece of shit.